Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 773, Richard's here and we've got lots to talk about. We'll be talking about the new toy, the Surface Duo, which I've got in my hands. We're talking about where I'm up to with that. We've got new Surface devices being announced this week, new Surface Pro X, Surface Laptop Go. We've got some Windows Insider news, new builds, new features, some smart home news and lots more. So let's get straight to Richard. So Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Ian. How are you?
Okay, good, thanks. Bit of audio issues when we started, so I'm not sure if I've got a broken microphone. So we're using the Surface Laptop's array microphone, so hopefully that doesn't sound too bad tonight.
Would that be a laptop 2 or 3, or would that be a laptop Go?
Oh, that's that could be one of the things that we're talking about tonight. Yeah, so we've got to talk about Laptop Go. We can talk about this little device that I've got here, which is a Surface Duo.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be very carefully putting it on charge this evening.
Good. You've not cracked the USB-C port, have you?
No, I haven't.
Good.
No, not yet. Anyway, I put the bumper on it though because I was a bit paranoid. So we can talk about that as well. We've got some ARM things to talk about with the Surface Pro X updated and ARM 64-bit emulation. Well, we've got new builds of Windows 10 and lots of things. So and just say Gary's not with us tonight, but hopefully we're back in on the show soon. So we're looking forward to getting him back. Just before we quickly, one thing I just wanted to mention before we start, I did get we talked a few weeks ago about the IFTTT service going off, and if they've sent me one email, they've sent me 1,000 emails. I don't know if you ever did. You ever use that service?
I tried it. Well, I tried it once or twice, but in the end, I think I ended up really just going for the Amazon ecosystem in the end, because it was one of those things that I could make it work, but it didn't. I couldn't make it reliable enough for it to be acceptable in the household. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, well, as we talked about, well, anyway, the reason I'm saying that is because I've got so many spam emails off them saying 2 days to go, 1 day to go before you have to pay £9 a month or whatever. So anyway, we were talking about on the show, and I was saying I'm using the Amazon app and the routines now, which is actually working out pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But Mike Parker sent me a message saying he was just catching up on some of our on our shows, and he said, have we tried considering Samsung SmartThings app? Because he's saying that he's using that as a hub for all of his smart home devices. So maybe this is something we can talk with Gary when we get him back. But I've never used that. So I actually said back to him, well, I haven't got a Samsung hub or anything like that. And he said, you don't actually need that. It works with all the usual devices you integrate to Alexa, and he said it's good for automation. So might be worth checking that out. Not for you, because I know you've got great stuff, but
I would love to play with this stuff, but as I say, yeah, the household doesn't always approve it.
Yeah. So anyway, thanks for that, Mike. I'm definitely going to look into that myself, because I've got quite a few routines looking up. I did put I had a motion sensor in the drawer. Do you remember I set my garage lights up so with the switch bar automatically switch on? So like, rather than asking the Amazon device or whatever to turn it on, I thought I'd use a motion sensor. I had a Hive motion sensor that I hadn't been using, so I put that in the garage. But I set a routine up with it, but it just doesn't work. So I get the notification to say there's been motion, but it doesn't actually trigger anything on Alexa. So it's not the SwitchBot side; it's the Hive trigger. So maybe that's something I could try with it. But I thought that would make more sense if you walk into the garage and it just turns the light on for you. And then I was going to set a timer up so it goes off after 10 minutes without motion or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I thought it would be more useful. I am the only one that uses the system though, because it's a dual switch in the garage, and there's a switch by the door, so everybody else just uses the switch. I frown at them when I see them doing that.
That sounds a lot like my house. That really does. Yeah. So just talk to it. It's fine. Just talk to it. It'll do it. It'll do it for you. No, they press the switch.
Yeah, it is handy when you're carrying a lot of stuff, but into the garage and in and out. But anyway, so anyway, thanks for that. I'm gonna have a look at that, and we'll look at that in the future. Right. So where do we start with first? Now I know you were interested keen to talk about the ARM stuff. So let's talk about the new Surface devices first.
Yeah, this is the Pro X and the Laptop Go, which kind of just popped up. I mean, they'd been rumored for a while, hadn't they? Yeah, I think people were had there'd been leaks and things, and the sort of filings indicated that something was on the way. But yeah, so the first thing I saw was the I wouldn't say a new Surface Pro X. They've kind of put some more. They've given it the SQ2 processor, which Microsoft works on with Qualcomm to go and create a good ARM experience. And so that has kind of sped things up a bit, I gather, on the Pro X. And they've also added in things like a new platinum finish and some other colors and some other colors for the keyboards. Price is still, I have to say, a little bit insane. It's about $1,500 they start at, I think, and that doesn't get you a wondrous machine, if I'm honest. And then it's a sky's the limit after that. And that was interesting. Of course, that came along with the ARM thing from Microsoft, where Microsoft finally confirmed that Windows on ARM is going to support 64-bit Windows, 64-bit Intel applications, which I think is quite an important thing, because up until now, if you've spent all that money on a Surface Pro X, you can either run obviously ARM native apps, which do run very fast, or you can use the emulation layer, but that could only do 32-bit Windows. And to be frank, it wasn't that great, in my opinion. I mean, it was a lot better on the Pro X than previous Windows and ARM devices, definitely a lot better, but it wasn't great. And of course, there's a whole range of things which need 64-bit versions. So I think was it Panos? Did Panos do a blog, I think, where he said it would be coming to the Windows Insider rings, I think, in November.
Yeah.
Which is when you can start to see the first previews, and which is okay. I mean, I have to say that's a year since the Pro X came out. I mean, Microsoft hasn't been particularly quick in supporting new things on the Pro X. It took a long time for Edge to appear. I don't think Office 2019, I don't believe that's ARM-based yet, is it? It's still a resolutely Wintel application, I believe. Is there a native version of that?
I think it is. I think there is a native version.
There's a native version? Okay, in that case, I stand to be corrected. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Visual Studio, I mean, I know VS Code. There is an ARM-based version.
Yeah,
that's just kind of because obviously you've got the, that depends on Electron. But yeah, the full Visual Studio, I think that's almost definitely still Intel-based. So it's a bit of a muddled picture, I think, for the Pro X. So I think the 64-bit support will be good. I do wonder how much of that is also partly being driven by the fact that Apple is about to release their ARM-based Macs, and they will be supporting, as I understand it, 64-bit Intel-based Mac applications, because obviously Apple are very good at migrating people. They've done it from Motorola through to Intel, and now Intel to ARM. So, and I'm hearing rumors that performance is particularly good on those machines. So I do wonder how much of this is Microsoft thinking, well, we should, we can't keep saying it can't be done or it's hard, because clearly it can be done. So maybe we should do something. But yeah, so that was a Pro X. I think the more interesting launch was the Surface Laptop Go. Now, I don't know how you feel about this, because obviously there's the Surface Go tablet, which is a neat device. It starts at about £400, I think, and then you add keyboards to it.
Yeah.
And it's relatively under-spec'd. The Surface Laptop Go seems to be in a similar vein. You've got the Surface design. It's got a touch screen. It's very compact. I think it's a 13-inch screen. It's not very big, is it? A 12.4 screen.
12.4, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not particularly big. It weighs just over a kilo. But I cannot for the life of me work out what they're thinking about with that base model, because it's a laptop. They're expecting £549 for it, and the spec is, I mean, words fail me for how bad that spec is. It's 4 gigs of RAM. It's 64 gig eMMC drive. I mean, it does have an i5, so that at least will chew through work. But 4 gigs of RAM and a 64 gig eMMC drive running Windows seems insane. I mean, we said this about the Surface, the Surface Go, but this is a laptop, and and to kind of make it what I would deem as a more usable device, you have to really go for the 8 gig version and go for the SSD. At which point you're spending £700 pretty much, which is a lot of money. And
Yeah.
it's a curious thing, because I'm pleased they've done it, and I can see they're kind of, I guess they're aiming at the education market, the Chromebook market, those people who can't really afford a full-blown Surface laptop. But that entry spec, I think if you bought one of those, you would have a horrible Windows experience on that.
Yeah, I suppose it depends. It's like ever, it's what you use it for. For the 64 gig is always an issue. That I think that is really tight to get Windows on there. You can just about get Windows and maybe Office on there. And yeah, I know people say, "Oh, I store all my documents in the cloud," but it's amazing how quickly those drives fill up.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm forever clearing out space on this. I've got a Surface Laptop 2 with 128, and forever clearing out space on there. And I wish I'd gone for the 256 one, but it's always that leap in price that puts you off. But that's partly because I wasn't using Hyper-V, and now I am, so that's part of it. But
yeah,
549 though, I mean, for an i5 processor, that's not bad, but it's that 4 gig of RAM, 64 gig. It's not very generous, is it? But I suppose it depends on what you want to use it for.
I guess so. I mean, if you were to, it comes with, I think it's Windows 10 in S mode. So in theory, it shouldn't, as long as you stay in S mode, you shouldn't see your machine become too badly crusted up over time, I guess. But I mean, I guess you could run a browser. I mean, how well would Chrome work in 4 gigs? Probably not that well. I haven't seen what kind of memory monster it is. And the new Edge, of course, is Chromium based.
I still use my Surface Pro 4 for some things. That one's only got 4 gig RAM.
Mm-hmm.
It's got the 128 gig drive SSD on it though. But it works fine. But I only really do a bit of insider testing and a bit of browsing on it. So it's funny, isn't it? Because I've got the Surface Go, which I use a lot, but I got the one with the 8 gig of RAM and 128 gig SSD, but it's only got the Pentium processor, Pentium Gold, isn't it? And not the i5. So the i5 is quite a good processor, but it is, I don't know, you'd have to be doing fairly restrictive stuff to really enjoy working up with that.
I mean, I guess if you're working in an education setting, or you need a Chromebook device, and that's probably going to be okay. But I think if only they'd managed to do the 8 gig, 128 gig SSD, because obviously we should point out that's a 64 gig eMMC drive. It's not the same as an SSD. It's what eMMC is, shall we say, not as speedy, I think is how I can put it. If they could have brought the 8 gig, 128 gig drive down to that 549 price point, it'd be brilliant. That'd be fantastic. But they've priced it £150 more to make it what I think is a device you probably really want to have these days. 4 gig was accepted, was okay perhaps 3 or 4 years ago, but now it's 2020. I don't think a premium Surface device like this that's a laptop should be shipping with a 4 gigs of RAM. I think it's time to move on from that spec and admit that you need more RAM to have a good experience. I mean, because Surfaces are all about the experience, and I just worry that people are going to get that and have a rotten experience, and that will tarnish the brand.
I do wonder though if this was never supposed to have Windows 10 on it, and it was a Windows 10X device.
Oh, it could have been, couldn't it? Yeah.
It would make a nice Windows 10X device.
Well, it would do if we knew what Windows 10X actually needed. its final specs and requirements. Yeah, but in theory, Windows 10X being a lightweight container orchestration system, I guess, it would have been good, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So, but maybe that's where it comes from. Certainly, the £700 one, it seems quite expensive. But you still can't get a laptop, Surface laptop for that, and you can't get a Surface Pro for that either. You can just about get the Pro with 7 props, but without the keyboard. So
yeah, exactly. But the danger is, I mean, I this being a relatively ordinary looking laptop, it hasn't got the same halo as the Surface, as Surface Pros and what have you. The Surface Go, which are two in ones, it is a laptop. I think your average purchaser will look at other laptops and think, this is a lot of money for not much more spec, or worse than that, they'll buy it and they'll think, oh, the Surface brand is terrible. Because I don't know. I came away disappointed, whereas I do like the Surface Laptop 3. I think that's a nice premium flagship device. I think with the Surface Laptop Go, whereas with the Surface Go, they've got the two-in-one factor. It's still unusual. It's still, it's got the design flair. The best one in the world. This is a laptop. It's a nice laptop, but it's a laptop, and so you haven't got that Surface flair there. But you're still paying Surface prices.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what it's like in real use when you look at the display, because it's 1536 by 1024, whereas even the small Surface Go I've got is 1800 by 1200.
It should be good, I think, but I guess as you say, we'll see once the actual real reviews come in, and I'll be willing to bet a non-alcoholic beverage that that people decide the 8 gig version is the better one to go for.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It definitely is. But I suppose it's been on budgets and that kind of thing. But yeah, it definitely is the better device. So it's just a shame that I think this would have been ideal for a lightweight operating system that Microsoft could be working on. So let's hope that maybe this is the device that next year will be the one, and this is the device they say this is the one we're going to test it with. Who knows?
Yeah,
they've gone very quiet on 10X.
It's gone really quiet. I was hoping that we might see something at Ignite, but there was nothing, was there?
No, definitely not. No. So yeah, no news on 10X at all. I mean, there's some insider builds last week, but it's all just the Windows 10. We did get another 20H. 2 update. I'm not sure this one came out as we were talking last week. I don't think it did actually. It came out on Wednesday, didn't it? So there's another update for that.
Yeah, it was just minor stuff, and I think it's just when they do patches elsewhere, they also patch this. I think that they fix some things in Edge, and I think they fix some things in with Modern Standby and things. So really minor stuff. I mean, this is. Yeah, it's. I suspect it's probably patches you might see in the production code. So it's kind of the third final update, I think. But
yes, I think it is.
I mean, they must be. I mean, next week, do you reckon?
Yeah, next Tuesday is my guess for Seekers.
Yeah, I think so too, because it feels that there's just not much more that they can do with it really. And hopefully we won't see quite so many devices blocked this time, because and all those Surface devices are being sold. Hopefully they will receive this update and not have to wait.
Yeah, hopefully. As far as the dev channel goes, we had 20226.
Yeah, we did indeed. Yeah, this had a few little tweaks in it, and for the first time, it actually managed to break my PC, which I had to actually roll mine back in the end. Yeah,
did you get the user profile error?
I've got 2 rigs here. One got the error, one didn't get the error, and I couldn't work out what the heck was going on. And I think I had a chat with Michael. Is it Gillett or Gillett? Yeah. On Twitter, and between us we kind of rolled things back, and it's like it's worked if it rolled it back, so it must have been a thing in the inside. But yeah, it was quite a strange error, because it was the old temporary profile thing when you log in and Windows decides your profile is corrupt, so it throws you into a temporary profile, and basically nothing works. So I was able to roll back, and that the problem went away. They've not updated the blog post for 20226 about that yet, although a lot of sort of Windows team members have been tweeting out various fixes and things for it.
There's a fix. A fix for it, but like you said, it's not. Well, it wasn't on the blog post when I checked the other day, but
it's still not there now. Yeah, which I was a little surprised actually, because it did seem to hit quite a lot of people, and if it was severe enough for the team members to actually tweet out the fix for it, you think, well, I think you should perhaps put that in the blog post. But it is a reminder, just to say, health warning. If you do dev channel builds and you do insider builds, it is preview code. I had a backup, so if everything went wrong, my doomsday plan was to basically nuke my PC from Orbit and all over again. So it's very important to keep backups if you do anything with these insider things. And to be honest, there wasn't an awful lot in that build. It's yet another relatively minor build. I mean, there was I guess the biggest thing was the storage health stuff, where Windows 10 will now warn you if your SSD is about to fail. So you got time to back things up or take action, as opposed to one day it doesn't boot anymore, or you get a blue or green screen of death, which is quite handy, but quite minor. It wasn't particularly big.
Actually, that would have helped Jack out with the PC he built, because he had a fault with his.
Really?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure I mentioned this a few weeks ago. You know, the gaming rig he built, it just kept every so often it would just blue screen.
Yep.
For no, and then it would come up insert drive media. You know, the old black
Yeah,
screen.
yeah. Oh, happy days. Yeah. Cannot find
Yeah. So
command.com.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and then when you go in the BIOS, the SSD is not there. So we'd reseat the SSD and it would work, or you just leave it off for a bit and it would come back on. So we were thinking, oh, heck, this looks pretty critical. So he got onto Amazon and they just sent him a new one and he's returned the other one. So we did a clean install because it's not that easy to. I mean, we could have got it back online, backed it up, but he has a separate drive with all his games on, so it wasn't really a big issue. But that might have helped him with this warning to, at least let him know that that's what it was, because we weren't sure it was a motherboard fault or whatever, but it turns out it was the drive.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would have helped. So that was the only thing. They also fixed the storage screen that wouldn't work at all on some devices like my Surface Go. So at least that screen is now there. So
oh yeah. I mean, sorry, Karen.
I was going to say, do you see that they took something away as well?
Yes, you can't sync themes.
Yeah, and I used to, in Windows 8 days, everything synced. It was brilliant.
Yeah, I must admit I've not got to the bottom of why that's happened, because that's, if you got multiple devices, that's was quite a useful thing to do. So I presume there must be some reason why it's come out. It's too technically hard to make work with something, but yeah, that was very, very strange.
I mean, Windows 8 used to sync your start menu layout and your colors and
yeah, it was great. Things, yeah, it was one of the few highlights of Windows 8, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's probably true, fair to say, but I like that. So
it was good. I agree. Yeah, I mean, I did notice, because I do run a few devices here. Oh, that seems to not work anymore. It's going away. So yeah, I saw that. And I mean, they have done some other very minor changes as well. There were things like Notepad will now persist an update as it did before. They've done things like handling zip files better in OneDrive. So there's a few bits and pieces, and there's a few fixes in there as well, as around the Windows subsystem for Linux too. You mentioned the storage, the storage management stuff. But on the whole, it was yet another relatively small release for the dev channel. And again, I think we're all hoping to see something big, but maybe that's going to be the ARM stuff in November.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I'm certainly not going to be testing that out, because I don't need another device.
No. I mean, even now, I don't know. I mean, the Pro X just doesn't appeal to me at all, if I'm honest, as a device. So I'm still, if I was in the market for a laptop, I'd be looking very hard at a Surface laptop, because I do think they're very nice. Yeah. But the Pro X, I don't know. It just seems to be a very, very expensive device to get what really right now still feels a little bit like a substandard Windows experience.
Yeah, it's good that it's kind of pushing them along a bit. Maybe, like you said, the Apple thing is pushing them along a bit as well with ARM. So for future devices, that this is going to get better and better until it gets to parity. But it's not there yet. Yeah,
it could be. I mean, obviously, ARM is in many ways the future as far as devices are concerned, because low power, instant on, that kind of thing. But I mean, while I'm no fan of Apple, they do seem to be a lot further down that path than Microsoft are, because they've obviously got a lot of experience with their own hardware. The iOS, what have you. So I guess it'll be interesting to see what Apple do with macOS, because there have been a lot of issues with recent editions of macOS. So we'll see. I mean, Apple have a lot of experience in migrating people from hardware platforms. Microsoft just not as good, because Microsoft they prize backwards compatibility so much. I think just moving platforms is a very difficult thing for them to do, whereas Apple not that bothered about backwards compatibility really. No. As anybody who's got a 32-bit version of any Apple application will tell you. So they probably maybe it's easier for them. Perhaps it's not quite so. It's a narrower it's a much narrower range of machinery, whereas Microsoft supports such a colossal amount of stuff. I mean, really, I find it astonishing that Windows even works, to be honest, with the sheer variety of hardware out there. But I guess shifting to an entirely new architecture, which is what the ProRex is trying to do and what Windows RT tried before, that I think is proving difficult. And it would be good to see, particularly with the ProRex, I'd like to see more Microsoft stuff going, at the same time as you have the Intel version, you have the 32-bit Intel, 64-bit Intel, but you also have the ARM version as well at the same time, not coming months or even years later.
Yeah. It should be at the same time. I think you can get Teams now, can't you, for ARM, which seems like one of those things that they should have had out on the launch, really.
Well, exactly. Edge and Teams should have been there. I mean, obviously Edge wasn't out, but it still took a while for Edge to come out on ARM. Teams on ARM, Visual Studio Code on ARM. There's no excuse. I think Teams, that's also Electron based, isn't it? The app.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
But so there's a large number of things that should have been out when the ProRex came out and weren't out, and so people were forced to use, the Intel emulation mode. And really, when you have spent that much money on a bit of kit, and it's a nice bit of kit, you shouldn't have to endure what I would describe as a relatively compromised experience, because it's nice hardware. It just needs Microsoft to catch up to software.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Do you see that also this week that Microsoft? So do you see that they've rebranded Bing?
Microsoft Bing.
Yes, Microsoft Bing. Yeah,
I did see that. Yeah.
I think they like to emphasize the Microsoft brand, don't they now? So we've seen like the Surface logo, or Surface text on the back of devices being replaced with the Microsoft logo, and I think this is perhaps just another example of that.
Yeah, it's good in some ways. I mean, seeing the Microsoft brand being applied to things, being proudly out there. It's a little bit sad sometimes when you see the Microsoft brand replacing known trusted brands like, say, Office. It's not Office 365, it's Microsoft 365. I think, well, you know what? People liked Office. That was a good name for it. That's what it was. But then again, I've also seen the Windows brand being removed and replaced with the Microsoft brand. Like it's not Windows Defender, it's Microsoft Defender. So there's maybe some ways, in some ways, it's good to remove some of the brands that may have negative connotations. But yeah, because
they did have a phase of sticking Windows on everything, didn't they, as well?
They did indeed, and also dot in front of everything.
Yeah. Oh yeah. .net. Everything was Windows Server, Advanced Server.net.
Yep.
Remember that, right?
Yes. Yeah. There we go. Loads and stuff there. Yeah. So yeah, but yes, Microsoft Bing. Yeah. For when Google doesn't work, it's great.
And I did see a story as well that I was going to ask you about. That there's a chance that Microsoft might be looking to buy Nokia. Have you heard this?
I read this and I thought I looked at it 3 or 4 times, and I don't think Microsoft have said anything, have they? Isn't this just sort of analysts sort of floating an idea out there saying, well, Nokia's all about, Nokia's all about sort of infrastructure now and telecoms and stuff. Microsoft could do getting in there. So, but I don't think Microsoft have said anything. I mean, I guess it could make a certain amount of sense. Microsoft does tend to, they obviously have their own Azure platform, and they have their infrastructure, which of course does impinge on telecoms. They did a big 5G deal last week as well. But it would be weird, wouldn't it? Because obviously we should point out the reason why I'm in here is because Microsoft bought Nokia a few years back and it didn't go well.
Yeah, I don't think that did go well. I wonder whether they'll give. I know this is, if anybody's not seen the story, it was just the infrastructure, the not the phone stuff, because that's just a licensing thing, isn't it? So, yeah, the actual infrastructure, which, let's be honest, in some ways makes some sense because of all the Huawei stuff. And I think in the UK, aren't they using some Ericsson kit now? And I think Nokia is one of the companies that has a competitor to Huawei stuff.
That's right, yeah, Nokia and Ericsson, because I mean, some of the UK companies have put in Huawei gear. I think Vodafone put in a whole bunch of Huawei gear for 5G, which they're in the process of pulling out now. And I think Nokia are going to be replacing a lot of that, as well as Ericsson. So, although obviously we shouldn't get into the politics around that, because the Huawei gear was pretty good, sadly. So it's in many ways it's going to be an interesting time to see how they replace it, because there was a reason why companies chose Huawei. And of course now they're going to have to choose somebody else. which I think will knock us back quite some way in terms of 5G adoption, because they've got to start again, which is, I mean, I think they've said it's going to delay things by at least a year. And of course, that was before the current issue with the pandemic. So who knows what's going to happen? But yes.
At least not using Excel to maintain all the core systems anyway.
No. Well, there's nothing wrong with Excel in its place. Nothing wrong with Excel in its place.
Absolutely not.
And also nothing wrong with using the correct file type, not the legacy file type.
Is this something that's been on the register?
It's been in lots of places, but yes. Yeah. But in terms of this is you're making an oblique reference here, I believe, to the issue with the patient data files that the UK government used. We suddenly found down the back of the sofa a whole load more infections with the virus, because I shouldn't laugh because it's quite serious, but because somebody was using, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, was using an Excel data file that only supported 65536 rows, and when if you had any more than that, it just got trunk. The process just truncated. Of course, modern versions of Excel go up to, is it a million plus? I think, but I think it's the old .xls, which I think died a death. Was it? It's either 2003 or 2007. It's 7.
I think, a
long time ago anyway. We're talking format, we're talking over a decade, before they moved to XML, and so so somehow there's some legacy system out there still using this, and they stuck it. They just stuck the data in there. If you've ever written any, I mean, when this first broke, and I think any of us who've been involved in IT and done any kind of data integration or migration, we just knew instantly what had happened. It's like, that's what's happened there. I can spot that one a mile off.
And I imagine that in a meeting somewhere, some IT technical person kind of had his hand up and said, this isn't going to work with that file.
Exactly.
It just got completely roughshod and overridden.
And things like ministers saying on TV, nobody knows how this happened. I thought, you know what, somebody does.
Yes.
There's basically a hard pressed IT person going, actually, I know exactly how that happened. It's because you didn't listen to me. I did say in the meeting that this was going to happen. There's numerous times I've had that happen to me. I say, yes, you can go for this solution, but X, Y, and Z won't work. And then 6 months later, well, it's ridiculous. I need feature X. Well, I did say that, but no one ever listens to the bit where you say that bit won't work. I think it's been a very interesting news story for us in the technical world, because people keep saying, it's Excel, and at that point you can't have, well, actually, not Excel. What it is, and then they fall asleep generally. But I do think, I mean, it's probably not the best bit of marketing for Microsoft with Excel, because it kind of wasn't Excel's fault. No. I mean, if you're doing that kind of data, you want to probably be putting it into some sort of database, maybe. I'm quite certain they
must have access.
You're making it worse. No, Paradox is good. Access, no. Jet 1.0, stick it in there, you'll be fine. Nothing will go wrong with that.
And if the Jet database corrupts, I've got a tool I wrote in 1996, I think, for fixing Jet databases.
I had the exact same thing. I used to work for a company that did call recording systems back in the day, and they used to use Access database to track the start and stop times for when the call's recorded. And they used, as I said, it was Access, and of course it would corrupt like every 24 hours. The MDB file would corrupt. So you had this process that would run and do a fix every day. No matter what happens, I'll do a fix at midnight, and then we'll carry on the next day. And just trying to keep and I can remember the conversation. Why don't we just migrate to a proper database? This is it's actually the same thing has happened here, in that it's using the wrong tool. Excel was not the right tool for that purpose. Access was not the right tool. They have great, they're really great for some things. Access, you can write some nice forms to enter information back in the day, do some quick and dirty stuff. Excel, again, slice and dice information, it's great, but you have to consider what you're using these tools for. And it's bad. Thank you for reminding me of that, Ian. I was not going to mention that. I was not going to mention that tonight at all, but
Well, I saw that story. It's always nice when you see IT story hit the mainstream news.
I know, and you just watch people floundering about it. You think, oh, come on, it's not that. Oh, it is that hard.
Yeah, it is. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about today is I did get my hands on a Surface Duo.
Very good.
And I've got a USB charging cable here, and I've been very careful when I plug this thing in because I've seen a lot of people reporting that the plastic is cracking on there. So Microsoft's efforts to get this device as thin as possible, they may have pushed it a little bit too far.
Yeah, if only it had wireless charging like every other over $1,000 device has got.
Yeah, that would definitely have solved it. So I only picked it up yesterday, so I got an initial video that I've put on our YouTube channel of going through the initial setup. It's very familiar. If you first of all, it's Android, so you're used to that. If you use the Microsoft launcher like I did for a long while on my Pixel, everything seems very familiar. It's very much got that look and feel of the launcher, you know, the standalone launcher which you can get for Android. But of course, it's the dual screens that make the difference. And first, I've got to say, aside from this issue that they're having with the crack, the hardware feels extremely well engineered. The hinge, the way it closes, and everything else, it feels well made. It does have I do feel it feels a little bit fragile, perhaps, but it is fairly solid. I mean, I've got the Tank, sort of the Note 20, which is a really solid phone, but actually, this does feel still quite well made. You can see the compromises that they've had to make, but it's very nice. And my initial impressions of using a dual screen device, and I've not used any other ones yet, is it reminds me of when you go from having a laptop with a single screen to going to a laptop with a second monitor. Where you suddenly, you get used to. I use dual monitors all the time. Some people use 3 and 4, whatever. But two will do for me. I use the laptop and an additional one. And when you're not using that second monitor and you're just using the laptop, I do feel restricted in what you're doing sometimes. So because I use it all day, and then if I'm maybe on the sofa with just a laptop, I do miss that second screen. And you kind of get that feeling with the Duo, is that you really like the second screen, and when it's not there, you're using one of the other. Another phone, actually you do miss that second screen. It's obviously it's not quite as essential because you're not sat working on a mobile device all day like you would, if you sat at your desk. But having the two screens side by side actually is a really nice experience, and then you do kind of miss it when you go back on a single device. So things like Outlook, especially because you got the Outlook list on one side, so you can span it between. So you've got the Outlook, and then you've got the you've got the preview of the email on the other side of the screen. I think that works really well. But I found works pretty well as well is OneNote, and I do a lot of notes in OneNote, so I tend to leave the OneNote on the right screen, and the other thing, either Edge or email on the left screen, and then you can make notes between them. You can use the Surface Pen as well. Any of the Surface Pens will work with it as well. And that works really nice. What is good for if you like typing, or if you're like me and you type and you don't like wearing your glasses all the time. What I found is if you span that compose mode where the keyboard is the lower screen, actually works really well. So you can do 2-thumb typing with a really nice big keyboard at the bottom there, and the full screen email composer on the top. And I really like that compose mode. It's very intuitive to use. It kind of reminds me of the old Windows mobile devices when you had all the different keyboard form factors. With this, you've got that sort of flexibility with that. So I found that really good. I really do like that. And I've done some other bits and pieces. I did a Teams call with it this afternoon, and just didn't bother with the laptop and just had the earbuds on with that. And it's quite nice with the Teams. You've got the camera on there for Teams. So it's not going to be, the camera's not particularly brilliant for taking great pictures, but it works quite well for a Teams call. So on 24 hours, it does feel well designed. Software issues that hopefully they can fix, but I think they're on the right track with this. I just think it's not ready yet for mainstream they're missing NFC, they're missing wireless charging. They're probably and the camera is probably the three things that make this where it's not really a replacement for a Samsung or an iPhone yet. And I think version 2 will be where that comes. What's going to be interesting for me is that I have got, because this is my regular SIM in the Samsung, is whether I switch the SIMs around, and I think that's what I'll probably try and do at some point, is just switch the SIMs around and try and force myself to use it for a bit. But now I've put the bumpers on. The SIM card slot is underneath the bumper, so I won't be doing that just yet.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. It's very much a version 1 device. I mean, we look at the other foldable phones, which are now really quite good. They're all second gen, and their first gens are frankly awful. So I think as a first gen, it's actually pretty good. It's just there's some things missing for a device that costs as much as it does. There are some things that need to be there, and I think certainly NFC, wireless charging, better camera, all there. And the thing that actually stopped me getting it at all right now would be the lack of any kind of waterproofing.
Yeah, I never thought of that, but yeah, I suppose it depends on.
Seeing as it's been raining torrentially in the UK for the last few days.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I'm always reminded of when I took my one of my earlier iPhones to the Apple store to get fixed, and the guy said, "Oh, it's got wet." I said, "It's just been used normally. It's not been dunked in water." He said, "Well, no, I can see it's wet. Have you used it in the rain at all?" I said, "Yes, it's a phone." "Well, you shouldn't use it in the rain." Well, yeah. I live in England. It rains here a lot. Can't really help it, I'm afraid. So I think certainly a bit of water resistance would be good. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's good to see it there and functioning. So I'll be very interested to see how you get on in more of a long-term real-world test.
Yeah, that's it. I just, like I said, my plan was to swap the SIM cards around, but I put the bumpers on because I want to protect it. And then I thought, oh, SIM card's under the bumper. So I had to take the bumper off and then leave it unprotected. Although actually it looks like it has got the cover on there. Actually saying that, I think it, oh no, so I tell a lie. It did say put your SIM card in first, which I did, but actually there is a removable thing there by the looks of it, so I can do the SIM card swap. So
do it now.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of apps, it's a lot different from the last time we let's try to use a Microsoft device, a mobile device, because everything that I use on there is on here, so there's no issues with that at all. I've even got all the Microsoft apps, Authenticator, everything else, all synced up and everything. So I've got all my apps on there because the way that we work now with OneDrive and cloud-based email, really having moving devices is really fairly straightforward now if you're sticking with Android, or I guess if you're on iPhone to iPhone. So there's no issues with that. I've got the smart home apps on here. What I did notice though is that I do find that this the Samsung Note does feel, after using the Microsoft device, does feel too thin and too tall.
Interesting.
Which for a phone seems slightly odd, I guess, because I mean I really like this Samsung this Note 20. It is the best phone I've ever used, features and hardware and everything else. But the screen size does feel a little too tall, perhaps. But I as we mentioned previously, I like big phones, so I'm not bothered about that. But then going to use this actually feels a more natural form factor, because I think it's that more of a PC style one.
I mean, I think I'd rather not have those giant bezels though, if I'm honest.
Yeah, the bezel. I mean, especially when you're coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
From the Note with no bezels at all. But actually, they very quickly, don't bother about those. I mean, some of the spanning stuff, we joked about the Kindle stuff, but that does work really well on there. Some of the, I'm just going through the apps that do like the span, like I said, the Microsoft apps do. I would like to see some of the Google ones support it better, and perhaps we'll see that as Android 11 rolls out with more of the Google applications spanning. But they're definitely onto something here. I think the dual screen form factor for productivity is going to be really interesting. I mean, I've been a fan of the small tablets, which kind of died a death. And I dug one out. This is my Lynx 8-inch screen, and it's actually smaller than the combined screen of theirs. So for a bit of surfing, if you span that browser, especially when you get nice videos going on, you span those pages, it really is a nice experience for reading. The screen is super nice for reading text on as well. Not that there's anything wrong with the Note one, but this is really nice and for playing videos. The split screen though just does mean you can do some different things to it. You can sort of stay in one application while launching another one, which I quite like as well. So it's quite clever. You can tell they've worked on it. So when you click a link in one application, it takes to another application, doesn't get rid of your main screen. It always opens it on the other screen and that kind of thing. So they've obviously put a lot of thought into that. I think there's more to do on the software, and there is an update coming out before the show goes live. So there'll be an update for this week as well, which should improve a lot of the bugs. And I have seen lots of reports of the bugs of the start button or the start thing not showing up at the bottom here and that kind of thing. But I haven't had too many issues with that, to be honest. And the auto rotation people have had issues with as well. So Fingerprint Reader, it actually makes really good sense there on the side. Yeah. Instead of touching the screen, actually, I think it makes more sense on the side than it does on the front, like the Note, because you hold it with your thumb like that.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've got an S10, and that's got the Fingerprint Reader on the side button, and that really works well.
Yeah, I think it kind of makes more sense, really, and it's accurate. No issues with the Fingerprint Reader. So, in terms of switching to the main device, obviously the fragility of that USB-C is something that would worry me. But I've got the bumper on that. Hopefully that'll protect it. But
it's just cracking the plastic. The actual, it's more. I think it's more of a cosmetic thing. Yeah. It's not damaging the actual device itself.
But to actually, the things that would stop me switching over the SIM immediately is the camera, because I do like going out. I'm in the garden doing something. I like to take a picture of where I'm up to and like some of the good shots. You get some, so that that Note 20 camera is brilliant, and the NFC. But I did pair up my Motorola, my Google Wear smartwatch, so I can use that for the payment. But still,
yeah. At some point, I've got to make the jump from iOS to Android. I know I've got to do it at some point, but I quite like my Apple Watch, and I'll tell you why. Because I wear it on my wrist whenever I'm tempted to buy a useless bit of electronic gadgetry. I think, this on my wrist is the last time I was tempted, and it's a reminder to say, don't buy any useless electronic gadgets.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And hopefully, walking around with two phones should be the same reminder for me. So, which phone I'll end up using, we'll have to see, and how long I keep this Duo for, I'm not quite sure yet. So I'm going to keep hold of it as long as I can. So and to see how it fits in with my workflow. So I think that was just about everything we had time for this week.
Yeah, I think so.
So we'll be back same time, same place in a week. I shall do a video on the. I try and use the. Maybe I'll do a video later on this week when I've had some time to spend with it. I'm not going to do a video instantly because you really need to live with the device to know how it's going to work.
I want to hear next week your week living with it as your primary phone.
Yeah, we're also going to check to see whether I can swap these SIM cards without breaking the bumper. That'll be my first job. So Richard, where can we find you?
You can find me mostly on Twitter at Richard_Speed.
Excellent stuff. Well, we'll be back same time, same place next week. You can email me Ian@thislifelifestyle.com. I'm at iStixon on Twitter. See you next week.